Jeremy Vine, my most favourite thing ever with you, apart from the fact, as you know, I absolutely love you, is that you came on Talking Pictures and we got Josh Barry to be you. Jeremy Vine and Jeremy Vine being Thelma and Louise is still my most favourite thing. And people aren't going to know what I'm talking about, but live on stage, you and your doppelganger were Thelma and Louise.
Yeah, well, I love Josh, and he's done some brilliant Instagram recently, but there was a poignancy when that happened. So you were doing a show, and Josh was doing an impression of me, and I joined in. And I'm taken back to a day when I first heard Lewis MacLeod do this impression of me on Steve Wright's show. And Steve, God love him, was my next door neighbour on Radio 2. And he's such a lovely guy. Look at me with my present tense. That Steve would say, are you sure it's okay? Because if you don't like it, we'll stop it, I promise. I said, no, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. And then one day he said, Lewis can't come in today, so I want you to do an impression of Lewis doing an impression of you. And they rolled this tape on it, and it was just mad because I was getting a little, not cross, but I was getting frustrated because Steve was such a perfectionist. Yeah. He was saying, right, no, hang on a minute, it goes up at the end like that. Can you do it up at the end like that? And I was going, so it's up at the end like that? No, it's not like that, it's like that. Anyway, so
he was telling you how to do you.
He was telling me how to do me. And I said to the studio manager afterwards, please can you give me a copy of that, because that was great. In the awful circumstances when Steve died and we were all just so shocked.
Oh, gosh, what a shock.
Someone made a documentary and they said, have you got anything of you and Steve? I said, look, this is nuts, but you can have a listen. And they just thought it was such classic Steve. It was fantastic.
He was a perfectionist, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. And that thing that I couldn't even get an impression of me right. So yes, when I heard Josh do it, I thought of that moment, actually. So I had a little moment.
How does it feel to have people doing an impression of you, at you, with you?
You must have had it too. It's just one of these crazy things. The funny thing when it started to happen, is what happened was that Lewis MacLeod is basically the Beatles of impressionists. So he was the first one to do it, and he'd do it better than anybody. And as a result of that, I started to get letters. I didn't even really know it was on Steve's show initially. And I started to get letters. They really were letters from older listeners. You've got young kids. Why aren't you going home after your show? Why are you but playing the fool on Steve Wright's show? And in the end, I got this kind of pro forma letter. I'm sorry to hear from you. I can just reassure you it's not me. It's Lewis MacLeod doing an impression of me.
They really thought
it was
that
so
Lewis
good.
Was you.
My kids thought it was me. It was
Wow.
It's still so good. His impression. So, and he, I suppose, it's probably a bit self-indulgent to sort of analyse it, but it always is the thing where they notice something about you that you haven't noticed yourself. And what they noticed was that I seemed to talk like that and I suddenly got up at the end. And so
Are you conscious of doing it?
Well, sometimes I hear myself doing it now and try and rein it back. But I don't know, it's like a great big Alsatian that just climbs all over the desk or something. I don't know what it is. It's best not to think about it.
But also, doesn't it mean that you are dearly loved?
Oh, I don't know. I put a cycle video on Twitter and I do not get that impression,
okay.
I can tell you.
That's a whole other Jeremy
Let's
Vine.
not talk about that. Let's not do it. Social
things.
media is so horrible. And it's true that when I meet listeners, and that's usually outside London, and it's often people who've listened. Because, with the radio, Gaby, they listen for years. Jimmy Young, my predecessor, had 29 years. 29. He was 84 when he left. And, so you're in their rooms like a kind of armchair. And there's the privilege of that. Honestly, there was a moment the other day. What was it that happened? We had a fire drill. It wasn't even a drill. It was like I'm doing the impression of me now. It was a fire drill. It wasn't even a drill. So the bell went off properly, as in the bell went off in the studio during the show. I've never had that before. Oh. I didn't even know they could do that.
I was about to say, I didn't know that could happen.
No, there's a second bell. There's a second bell that goes off when there's actually a fire.
Thanks for the warning. I didn't know that could happen.
No, because we've always heard it going on down a corridor.
Yes.
So it was a proper, this is a fire, and we all had to leave the building. And we're on the 8th floor, and we had to troop down the stairs. And then, of course, when we got to the piazza outside Portland Place, they said there's no fire, and we all trooped back up again. And that period of 20 minutes where they were putting out the reserve tape, which is just songs, and of course, the tape was made in the 1950s or something, so it's Wurlitzer and Zither. Genuinely, I could see from the comments, it panicked people.
Yeah, of course.
It's like, has there been a nuclear blast? What's happened to Radio 2? So you realise that there's certain things people take for granted, and when they go, it's really catastrophic. And that, of course, COVID was like that,
But you carried on throughout.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
You carried on.
When we had the fuel, remember the fuel crisis where the truckers blockaded, the farmers blockaded the fuel depots and we couldn't get petrol, how quickly we all went feral? It was really amazing.
But actually, you have been through, all the years that you've been Radio 2, but obviously, you have a career before that and you do other things as well, which we'll talk about. But Radio 2 is very much, you are part of everybody's life. And because your show is all about opinions and your choice of music, which is very, my husband loves punk, so he always, he listens to your show because we love to know what people are thinking.
Was your husband born in 1965?
Around then.
Yeah. Because we had the best music. There's no question.
That's what he says.
Yeah, no doubt.
But what's wrong with musical theatre and pop? That's what I say. Musical theatre and pop. You were in a punk band, though, weren't you?
Yes, I was in a band called The Flared Generation because we realised, and it was a slightly, I suppose, a bit too knowing realisation that we couldn't be any good trying to be better than the Jam because no one could be better than the Jam. So we then decided to form a really retro punk band in Cheam, which was very unfashionable. And the idea was the punk band had just totally lost the thread of what punk was. And we emerged with ties and sensible shoes and flared trousers. And we were called The Flared Generation. And we actually had a single out. We appeared on Radio 1 and Smash Hits.
Smash Hits.
And then after a second, everyone thought, no, that's old now. That joke's gone. We thought, there's a career here. We're going to be going for 40 years.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you. Did you realise that you were going to be such a backbone of people's life? Because it is. Radio 2 is. There's no two ways.
That's the station, not me. Though.
Yeah.
But I think that's
that
partly,
show as well.
It's in the nature of, it's the weirdness of the BBC to some extent that it is in that spinal position in the nation's life. So it's there. It's holding everything up, and it's amazing. And Radio 2. And we must never forget how lucky we are at the BBC because we have our food paid for before the food comes before we paid is what I kind of mean. The license fee money arrives and we make programs, and we're very, very lucky. And Radio 2 has an incredible freehold. I still think, I walk in the building. We've just moved to the main building, and it's Radio 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm thinking, what sort of imagination is at play there in the 60s and 70s where they say, we've got 4 stations. What should we call them? Radio 1, Radio 2, Radio...
But it's
crazy.
It's a mainstay. It's a mainstay.
It is. Radio 2 is glorious. And just on the whole thing of radio, isn't it incredible that Tony Blackburn was the first voice on Radio 1 in 1967 when he introduced the first record, which was Flowers in the Rain by The Move, and he's in the lift yesterday with me at Radio 2. Isn't that amazing?
Oh, completely. But radio it's very interesting because obviously you and I both work in television and radio. And it's interesting when everyone says, oh, this is the demise of television. This is the demise of radio. Radio listening figures are going up. Television has changed, that's all. But people are still watching television, just in a different way. So it's just moving and it's you, because of being the like I said, the backbone. You are what people are thinking. Your show is what people are thinking.
Bless you.
And but we don't really know. If we just sat, I'm going back to social media. If we just sat on social media, we would think that if you're on one social media platform, you think everyone hates everyone else.
Yeah.
If you're on another social media platform, everybody just wants to dance. If you're on another social media platform, they're all different ways.
Course.
But what you do is you bring the listeners, the people who are really out there, and we actually know what they're thinking.
It's funny how I think radio is special because people are so intimate and they're open when they ring a radio show. On a TV show, if you're going to interview someone, you put makeup on them and you light them, and as soon as you put the lights on, they change and they're not the same person. And today we just did body dysmorphia, and there was a woman
on your TV show,
on the radio show.
On the radio.
And so a lady rang in, and she had she's like a 30-year-old, and she rang in and said she can't leave the house because she hates her eyelids. Isn't that an amazing thing to say to a radio host?
Heartbreaking.
Because one of them has slightly gone below the other, so she had an operation, it's made it worse. And so now she's trying to have another operation. And you can see that she may look a bit unusual, but at the same time, the body dysmorphia has multiplied it by 1,000. And I don't know if will she ever get out of her house? And she's calling me, and I'm thinking, I really want to do something. I want to help. What can I do? We had a call very early after I started, but from a 75-year-old who said she was raped as a 12-year-old by a family member. And I said, who have you told about this? And she said, only you, you're the first. Oh. And I remember being 40 and thinking, this is better than Newsnight. We never got this on Newsnight. This is incredible to have that level of connection with your audience.
And they trust you. You are trusted.
Well, trust is precious, and it can go in an instant, so you have to really guard it. But I think, it all started when Jimmy, apparently, it's the story I heard, Jimmy Young, the great Sir Jimmy, in the early 70s was interviewing Geoffrey Howe, who was then, I think, would it have been, maybe after 74, so Labour in power. Geoffrey Howe was in studio, an opposition minister, and he was talking about agriculture, and someone rang the studio and got through to the production office and said, this bloke has never seen a sheep in his life. And then that was put through. Somehow someone took a piece of paper and Jimmy read it out. And in that moment, the whole interactive thing was born.
That's fantastic.
That was the idea that it was an accident. This person got through to this production area. Someone wrote it down. Someone took it through to Jimmy and he read it out for a joke. And then we, obviously the years that followed, we had Brian Hayes with the phone-ins and all of that. But that was the start of it. And when I started, they were still bringing through bits of paper, comments on bits of paper. In fact, the bits of paper only finished 2 years ago. They finally decided they could put them on computer.
But what an incredible thing that one piece of paper, that one phone call has changed the way people. I mean, very much. And now, of course, your show on Channel 5 before. I actually don't know how do you go from one to you just on your bicycle?
Bicycle.
Yeah.
And you
have to shift your head.
It's so funny because whenever I meet my friends like yourself who are broadcasters, they're always interested in logistics. It's so interesting because broadcasters are like, how do you fit that in? And then how do you do that? And they always ask that question. Yeah. When I meet people who watch the show, they don't, it's not it's not of interest at all. But the answer is so Matthew Wright left Channel 5, and I don't really understand the circumstances of that. But anyway,
but you were at 5 anyway because you were doing Egghead. Because Egghead.
Not to that point. No, that was still BBC.
Ah.
Yeah.
So it didn't move until after you were in the morning.
I was a BBC guy.
No, I know.
And then they came and said, Matthew Wright has gone, will you do this show? And I said, that is going to be hard because I have to be in Radio 2 by 10:30 and your show ends at 11:15. So they said, well, what if you got into Radio 2? They were brilliant with it. There's a guy called Daniel Pearl who just made it all work. He said, okay, why don't you get into Radio 2 at 11? I said, yeah, that'll probably work because I'm not on till 12. And if you leave us at 10:30 and we pre-record the 45, 50 minutes between 10:30 and 9:15. So as you leave the building, we put out the stuff we pre-recorded at 8:15. And already if I explain this to anyone who's not in broadcasting, their eyes are glazing over. And they're thinking, can we talk about something else? But it is quite interesting because every day it works really, really well. And I do it's only 11 and a half minutes to cycle from ITN to BBC.
Which you do.
And I did it this morning and it was great. I cycled in the sun, made me happy. Made me joyful.
Yes.
It does.
Joy, yes, absolutely. Joy. All for the joy. All for the joy. I love the logistic that you went through because I was, okay, how'd they do it timing-wise? Okay, so they do funny. It. But
we're all the same. Listen, to those listening, broadcasters are all the same. They just, how do you do that? And then what happened? And that guy you work with, is he like he was 5 years ago?
Yeah, yeah. And do you ever say the wrong thing at the wrong place? Because I'm very, but you're the same. You go from Channel 5 to Radio 2. I go from Magic to BBC, and you don't want to say hello. And you think for a split second, you're not going to say no because you're there. You're not going to say hello. I'm on Channel 5. Welcome, Jeremy Vine on 5.
But Fine. I don't know how rude we can be on the podcast. Can I use
You can, why, yes, what would you like to say?
Always because I'm going to tell a story that involves a very, very rude word, possibly the rudest. But it's to do with that conversation we're having now, which is the broadcaster's fear of shouting something out.
Oh, I know. You're talking about somebody's name that went the wrong way. Not that name.
I'm talking. This is a conversation I had with a fellow broadcaster.
Okay.
So it was a general. And if this is too rude, Gaby, you cut this out. Okay. So it was with Emily Maitlis, and we were both doing graphics in the 2010 election. And bless her, she's a good mate. And she comes over, and it's really, because we don't know which way it's going to go, and Gordon Brown is fighting for re-election, and the polls are really tight, and we're waiting for the exit poll, and we say, oh, this is massive. It's about, we're on the air in 40 minutes. I said, what's your biggest... Well, she said to me, actually, what's your biggest fear? I said, I don't know, just the idea of just kind of completely drying up, and they come to you and you just look like a wounded animal. I said, what's your biggest fear, Emily? And she said, my biggest fear is I will just suddenly shout the word cunt. And she said, that's been going back years. I've worried about that. And I said, well, now you've worried me because now I'm going to worry about that either you shouting it or me shouting it. So we were just talking about this, crazy broadcasters. And the editor comes over, Craig Oliver, and he says, right, we've got the exit poll. I'm going to brief you on it. It's very, very close. And the key phrase I want you both to remember is on the cusp. I said, no, that's not going to help. So there we are.
Oh, you have been, of course, because you do all the election stuff as well. You are a part of the way people think. There's been stuff going on which we don't need to talk about, which has been very public and some horrible things.
The person.
Horrible things that have happened to you. But
what you mean? Oh God, I had so much to choose from. I was thinking you were going to talk about Hugh Edwards, but it's something else.
No. We're not going to go there. But for you personally, stuff.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
But this is reasons to be joyful. And what I know about you, and I've known you for a long time, is that you do have that in you. You have this joy of life.
Oh, bless you.
But you do. And so does your brother. And I know your brother, and I've worked with your brother as well. But you do have a joy for life.
Oh, thank you.
No, but you're smiling.
Thank
you are Mr.
You're so
Smiley
lovely.
Man.
I do think that it's not a deliberate thing, but I notice with people on work experience, I'd love to have a little moment where I said to everyone on work experience, okay, here's the thing, right? This is what you got to do. Firstly, when the presenter says, can I have a large Americano with cold milk? Don't bring him a small tea. That's just a tip. That's obvious, but it's amazing how often it happens. But secondly, the key thing is to spread joy.
Absolutely.
And if you're the 21-year-old who comes in and you just you're clearly loving it, and you watch the show and you listen, you're not on your phone, by the way, and you watch and you say afterwards, even just one thing, just that second item was really funny. We did something about paddle boards, and a guy rang up and said, the sound of paddle boards is like the Battle of the Somme. And this is a type of tennis or something. It was on today's show. And, but when the young work experience person said, I love that item, it means so much.
Yeah, of course it does.
And I think spreading joy is really important in life, actually.
You're saying all the right things. That's exactly how I feel about life. Life is too short. It's very, very precious.
But do you have friends in your life, Gaby, who are... I read a book once and it said there are what are called cellar voices, the ones who drag you down to the cellar.
The mood hoovers.
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah. But actually, no, the older you get, you make sure you're not around the mood hoovers and you go to the joy spreaders.
But will they not ever cheer up? Because I keep hoping the mood hoovers will cheer up.
But it's something about that's happening in their life, so you have to be... It's like the people who get angry, they get, somebody's pulled out in front of them. Oh, get out of the way, get out. And they hoot and all that, whether it's bicycle or my husband's a cyclist as well, whether it's a bicycle or whether it's a car. And I always say... But you don't know what's happened in their life.
Do you?
Yes. So you can't get angry because they might be rushing because their mother's not well. Their child might have just had something had happened at
that's
school.
how lovely you are.
So don't be like that.
We're different because I just say that's what they call small dick energy. That he's not getting enough. And a lot of...
Will behind you works on this, is absolutely in his... He's liking that. I think he prefers...
He knows I'm right.
Yeah.
He knows I'm right.
He prefers your...
What happens is all the people who are not getting enough sex lock themselves in small metal boxes and drive around London. That's fundamentally that's what's going on in our society. But it's so lovely of you to take such a positive view.
No, but there might be something going on.
Yeah, they might
So
be
you just be generous to that person.
Okay.
You're just so much... So where do you... Okay, I am going to talk logistics. So you have a new book out.
Oh, yes, I do.
Murder on Line 1, right? Mm-hmm. When in the
I love that you have no notes for this, by the way.
But when I like conversations.
I would get so scared of no notes.
No, because I love conversation and I'm nosy. So when in the day you get up, crack of dawn, get on your bicycle, you go do a live Channel 5 show, which you pre-record a little bit because you told us. Then you go and do your live Radio 2 show.
Yeah.
And you do elections and you do your social media stuff.
Bit of quizzing and
you do quizzing, you do eggheads.
Yeah.
And when do you...
And the most important thing is a father of two girls, most lovely girls in the world.
When do you ever, your daughters, your wife? No, but when do you actually write the book?
But
all jokes aside.
I don't... Okay,
you don't write it?
No, it's not.
Somebody else wrote the book.
God, don't. There's a whole scandal over that, but it's involving...
Sorry.
Not me, but generally authors now... You know about this?
No. Everyone when my book came out,
people not writing their own books.
The amount of people that interviewed me and said, "Oh, Spread the Joy." So who wrote it?
Oh,
me.
What's that about?
Me. I wrote it.
What's that about?
It is very bizarre.
And also quite famous people. I mean, can I tell this story? There's somebody.
Maybe keep the name
I'll
secret.
keep the name out of it. Okay, so somebody who was one of these very famous reality stars was supposed to do her autobiography. Obviously, she's not going to write it. The publisher, the woman at the publisher, is called Carly. And Carly is brilliant, and I know her really well. And she's told you are going to ghostwrite it. Now that's fine.
For you?
No, not to me, but to some. So Carly is going to ghostwrite.
Oh, okay, I'm with you.
Autobiography of a
this
famous
person.
celeb.
Yeah.
So they contract it, and Carly has to get 6 conversations lasting 2 or 3 hours with this person to get their life story. Right?
Yeah,
At least you've got, and then she'll write the book, and she can't get the time with her. She can't even get the conversations. And Carly says to me, in the end, I had to basically live as this woman. I immersed myself in every single thing I could find out about her. And I basically got myself completely into the mindset of what it was to be this person. And I then wrote the book. And she wrote it brilliantly. And it was a #1 bestseller, by the way.
Oh, my word.
But what was really weird was that when she finished it, she sent it to this famous reality star and said, please, can you let me know that this is what you want to go out under your name? Didn't get a reply. So the reality star didn't even read the autobiography she was supposed to have written. So Carly said to me, that wasn't even the worst thing. We couldn't get the interview time with her. We couldn't get her to read the book. It's then serialized in the mail, like 4 days running, reality star, this is my life, you know. And then she gets a call from the reality star who says, you won't believe what's happened. Daily Mail's only gone and made up my whole fucking life story. So Carly's book suddenly lands in the mail, and the person who's supposed to be the author of the autobiography finally thinks, what's going on? And I think, this is crazy. And if you had a book out, you'd write it, wouldn't you?
Well, no, that's my book.
Well, yes.
I had it out last year and I wrote it all.
I wrote mine.
Yes.
So what's this about? Is people not writing their own books?
No, but I'm trying to look at it in a generous way.
You are.
Maybe they don't have the time.
Yeah.
But how do you find the time?
Okay, so I do write it, but that's also because I'm probably like you, a control freak. So we don't want other people to write our stuff. And the answer is I love whodunits. I love Agatha Christie. Whodunits are back in fashion. I must thank Richard Osman for that, who unlocked the whole genre, really, the cozy crime genre with his brilliant book. And I thought, and I went to a publisher, I said, I'd love to write, a whodunit. And she said, this is the moment. This is not 10 years ago, not 20 years ago, but now. This is it.
Yeah.
And she, and her name's Martha Ashby, and she's brilliant, she's at HarperCollins, said, if you want me to advise you...
the same publishers. They're very nice people.
Very nice people, very civilized. She said, look, choose a place you love. So I said, okay, Sidmouth, Devon. Choose an environment radio station, and just have a murder happen. And that was so helpful to me. It was like the most completely simple structure.
So you didn't even go with an idea? You just said, I want to write a murder mystery.
Yeah, I really wanted to do it. So then the book, Murder on Line 1, is the result of that, and I'm just finishing a second. And in answer to your question, I've decided, I took advice from Osman, actually, because I met him, and I said, I'm following in your trail, and what's your advice? And he said, the best thing I always say to people is you've got to write something every day. And that's fantastic advice. So I just write 400 words every time I get up in the morning. And that means I'm always in
Brilliant. I was told exactly, bizarrely, from a mutual friend of ours, who I said, oh my God, they want 40,000 words. And I can't do the words. I only did the... Because I went in with the idea. Yeah. And she said to me, do 500 to 1,000 words a day.
Right.
Just do it. Even if they're not what you end up with, then and actually... That's what I did.
Yeah. Well, 40,000 words is about 50 days or 60 days in that basis, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I love it, and I because I loved Agatha. Agatha was my first. Agatha was when I was 11.
Yeah.
Was my first adult book was Hercule Poirot's Christmas.
How fabulous.
And then I read the next 65. The next 65 books I read were all Agatha Christie. So my teenage years was just being
So this is your world then? Do you...
I love whodunits. I love the classic English whodunit.
Don't tell us who done it though.
No, won't do.
Please don't.
No.
You have to go and buy the book, then you'll know. But with your books, obviously because Richard, he and Steven Spielberg now,
Yeah.
best friends. That's it. Are you thinking television, films, Netflix?
Somebody is piloting it on television, but I can't get my hopes up with that because so many of these things don't happen. But I think when you... what do I know? But it seems to me, looking at the TV market, what they do is they've got very simple minds on that side, and they want to be able to visualize almost the title. And the genius is his name Thorogood, who said, "I've got an idea for a TV series, Death in Paradise," and they just get yes.
And now look at the Paraverse. It's the Paraverse.
Yeah.
now.
So and Richard Coles with his monasteries and all that. It's funny because when Osman started, when he did his first book, which was Thursday Murder Club, was actually just as COVID broke. And I had a book out at that time, which is more of a literary fiction thing, which is about a painting I was obsessed with. And I am the patron of the Appledore Book Festival, which I love to do. And Richard had agreed to come down and be interviewed. And at that time, he hadn't sold a copy. It hadn't been out, So, I've known him for a long time, and he's a lovely guy. And my daughter was there as well, and she was about 17, 18. So we had a bit of quality time. Three of us had dinner and stuff. And I feel quite privileged now to have seen him just at that moment before it went gigantic. But what was weird, Gaby, was it was COVID, and that book festival said, right, we're going ahead despite COVID. We're going to do it as a drive-in. And so it was the weirdest things where I think people were able to tune their car radios to hear us on the stage. And I said, if you hear something you think is funny or you want to ask a question, hoot your horn. So there's all this hooting and everything, which is kind of funny. And then there was this to-do in the next field of a farmer and his tractor. And someone said, yeah, that was unfortunate that you did that because the farmer had been told there won't be any flashing or hooting because he was very upset about the whole evening being on.
No.
When he got really angry, he just got in his tractor and drove it in circles. I thought I'd like to have that option when I get angry.
Yes, just drive the tractor. Would you have a tractor?
I don't, but driving a tractor in circles is a very good way to emote safely.
Can you not do that on your bicycle?
I can go in circles quite a bit. I've been practicing. Yeah.
Have you?
Yeah.
Close, tight circles?
It's funny.
Can you zigzag?
I do ride a penny farthing, and that is very hard.
But you've got to be careful, please, because you had a really serious accident.
I did come off it, and the thing is, there's no way of saying I was rushed to A&E after falling off a penny farthing without causing people to laugh.
I know. I'm not.
It was, and had I ended
I can't look at you now.
And it was one of those things where...
But thank God you were okay. You weren't too badly hurt.
I could have had problems, but I didn't. I was fine. And when I was in A&E, it was kind of completely quiet in A&E, by the way. I had loads of people come through to see me, and they all said, are you the guy who fell off the... like that? Because they obviously just wanted to hear the story. And I then thought afterwards, look, could have been spinal. It could have been terrible.
Yes.
So I went to some guy in Harley Street and I said, can you scan my spine? I want to make sure it's all there. And they scanned it, and I came back the next day. And I said, right, show me. And on his desktop computer, he had a picture of a spine. It was broken in two with a gap between the two bits. And I said, oh my God.
That was your spine?
How can I not feel that? And he said, no, sorry, that's the patient I had earlier.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, right.
But he said the patient I had earlier tripped on a brick and did that. And you've fallen off a penny farthing and you're in one piece. So I thought I'd probably only get one chance.
Okay, so are you still riding it?
Yeah.
What do your daughters say?
No,
Dad, don't.
They do a bit. I only ride it. I don't ride it on grass. The mistake I made, I got overconfident and I tried to take a shortcut across some grass.
Okay, don't do that again.
And I didn't realise that if you hit a divot, if it stops, and this is why they went out of fashion. Because of
the divots.
You couldn't protect people against the headlong accident.
Well, we got what are they called? Things
Safety
potholes
bicycles.
now.
No, do
you dodge a pothole?
You've got to be aware of the road.
Let's not talk potholes.
You don't want to go in.
Because you'll show how many times do you do potholes?
Well, at least once a week.
Yeah, so let's not do potholes. But you on the penny farthing that's another joy. But there are things...
I do love it.
You do. Can I just ask you, sorry, this is really bizarre. So this goes on YouTube as well, but you're leaning on something. I'm intrigued to know. I was going to go into what are you leaning on?
Producer Joe said, could you bring something?
Yes, that's for the next one. Brings joy. Yes.
Your brilliant producer, Joe, said, have you got anything you can surprise Gaby with? And I said, this is hugely embarrassing, but I used to write loads of poetry. And one day I took all the poetry I'd written and I printed it all out and put it into a little book. But I was so embarrassed I only printed like 3 copies and I kept all 3. In fact, now I think I might destroy them because it's because your
is that what you have in
adolescent poetry. Yes, it is.
Please, may I?
I can't. It's
Please,
just.
may I have a look?
I don't want to.
No, please, I won't read one.
Okay, don't read one. You could just flick through.
May I?
Because some of them, they're all love poems.
Are they?
They're all people who, somebody broke somebody's heart or.
Oh, this is beautiful.
It's a beautiful font. I don't know about the words, but I'll happily read one out.
Oh, look!
What's that? Oh, don't.
No,
come on. What is it? What is it? Let's see.
That about the farm. And your
oh my God. Oh, Gaby, what is that?
Go on, read it out.
I don't even remember what that's about.
It's just.
Jeez, that's so embarrassing. Let me just. Okay. I'm happily read just a bit more.
How old were you when you wrote this?
Well, this would have been, I was now in my 30s and I was in South Africa.
Oh, the way you were talking, I thought this was when you were a teenager.
Some of them were teenage.
Okay.
So I put them all together.
Okay.
You can see, I'll just do, it's like a good sheaf of
stuff. Very thick.
So, because I'm just, aren't you the same? Are you not on that thing of constantly? No, isn't everyone doing this?
But no, mine are all. It's all verbal for me. I'm like blah, 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 blah. Television, radio, podcast.
Yeah, you're right. We all have to not emote, but we have to express. I do think so. This is just. I've only just opened it here, and it's when I was in South Africa. Oh gosh, I was about to cry there. When I was in South Africa as a correspondent, I was with this fantastic producer called Milton, and we're in Pretoria and the government was changing, it was post-Mandela, and there was a guy selling burgers and there was a sign in Zulu and I couldn't read it. And Milton laughed and I said, what does it mean? And he said, the sign says, if you are hungry, move closer to me.
Oh.
I thought, oh God. So I wrote this little poem.
Oh.
Okay. Sign on burger stand struck me as poetry. If you are hungry, move closer to me. All day long, I came back to that beauty. If you are hungry, move closer to me. And last night I dreamt I heard your soft whisper. If you are hungry, move closer to me.
Oh, Jeremy! Why are you embarrassed of that? It's beautiful.
I don't know.
That just gave me goosebumps. That's
my Lord.
Beautiful.
So
please don't get rid of that book.
No, I won't.
Oh, Jeremy.
Crikey. No, I could listen.
What have you found? No, what have you found?
Okay, all right. Let's just have a little look.
What's this one that you found?
This is somebody I really liked back in the day.
Have your girls seen this?
No, they would be mortified. They would be absolutely mortified. Hang on, let's just find
I met you with one of your daughters. We were all at the seeing Fiddler on the Roof last summer, and at Regent's Park Open Air Theatre. I'm sure your daughter was with you.
Yes, she was. She was, and we saw Nick Ferrari.
Yeah, you were sitting at a table with Nick Ferrari beforehand, and I had my daughters with me, and I remember thinking, God, that's bizarre.
Okay, this is called This is when I was teenage.
Okay.
Valentine's Card for a Musician, and this young woman played the cello.
Oh,
you hear what I'm saying?
Okay.
Every 4 months, as the seasons change, you strike your double bass across its range and write me a letter. Down logged lanes it comes, up tracks out of bounds for trains in war, lifted from Glasgow by planes and landed on a blinking strip. No cranes swoop faster than my hands for it, snatched, ripped and read so quickly. So who matched that speed, the air miles and the effort that you write so rarely? Why should this doormat wait till May for more? Door, stay latched. Love, why is the future still unhatched?
Oh, my word, Jeremy. Right, I'm actually going to... Will you do me a favour?
Yeah.
And take some of those and put them into a poetry book and share them, because they will help people.
I do love poetry. I find, like, I've got this memory for poems, like other people's poems.
But you have an extraordinary memory anyway.
Do I?
Yeah. If I said, who was standing in the so-and-so seat in the election in whenever.
Oh, I see, yeah. That's very particular and focused. But I was doing some sort of poetry thing the other night locally to where I live in Chiswick, West London. And they were saying, can you bring... It was just a kind of interview about your love of poetry. And they said, can you bring along some of your favourite poems? And I thought, well, the good ones are the ones I probably kind of remember.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether you can do poems on the podcast. You probably can't because of rights and stuff. But it was just like that thing where he did not wear his scarlet cap, for blood and wine are red, and blood and wine were on his hands when they found him with the dead, the poor dead woman whom he loved and murdered in her bed. He walked with other souls in pain within another ring, and was wondering if he'd done a great or lesser thing, when a voice beside me whispered low, that fella's got to swing. Dear Christ, the very prison walls suddenly seemed to reel, and the sky above my head was like a cask of scorching steel. And though I was a soul in pain, my pain I could not feel. I only knew what hunted thought quickened his step, and why he looked upon the garish day with such a wistful eye. The man had killed the thing he loved, and so he had to die. Yet each man kills the thing he loves. By each let this be heard. Some do it with a flattering look, some with a bitter word. The kind man does it with a knife, the coward with a sword. Some kill their love when they are young, and some when they are old. Some strangle with the hands of lust, and some with the hands of gold. The kindest use a knife because the dead so soon grow cold. Some love too little, some too long, some sell and others buy. Some do the deed without a tear, and some with many a sigh. Yet each man kills the thing he loves. But each man does not die. He does not die a death of shame on a day of dark disgrace, nor have a noose about his neck or a cloth upon his face, or plunge feet foremost through the floor into an empty space. You know who that is? Oscar Wilde. The Ballad of Reading Gaol.
That's incredible.
And I think I messed it up a bit, but it's this amazing thing of, he killed the thing he loved and he has to die. Gosh, I mean, Oscar, that guy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Years and years ago, Stephen Fry did that incredible film. And I remember afterwards interviewing Stephen and saying, I now feel like I've met Oscar Wilde.
He is Oscar Wilde in the 21st century.
He really is.
He is, but it's also,
Can we just go back to you, though?
Yeah, go on.
And that. I'm going to go back just a few minutes ago when I said you've got an extraordinary memory. There are not many people that can just reel off dates, they can do one or the other. You have the poetry, you have the dates, you have a joke, you have whatever it is. You have an extraordinary brain full of stuff, and you bring out the right thing at the right time. That is a talent.
Well, that's very kind of you.
I'm being...
Well, look, I think it also acts against me slightly, because I always think the most gracious people in the world are amnesiacs. And when you've got quite a full memory, you are logging, and you have to be very careful you don't hang on to things. So I'm someone, I've got to really concentrate that if I feel slighted, I just forget it, decide to forget it. But yeah, you're right. I suppose that's true. I don't think the great memory is a blessing necessarily, though.
If you use it in the right way, of course it is.
Yeah,
it is.
I do find that. I was looking
mine is just musical theatre songs. I can do what you did with that. It's musical
there
theatre.
We are. That's it. We've all got that. I think it's when it goes in when you're young as well. I interviewed once a guy called Henry Marsh, who was a brilliant brain surgeon. He's now about 80, and he wrote a book called Do No Harm, so he's very famous. And he pioneered, and this is a bit of a gulp moment, but he pioneered a type of brain surgery where you take the top off the skull, which is, of course, you have to do for brain surgery, but the patient stays conscious and you operate with only local anaesthetic, and you go, tell me the months of the year, and you just use an electric probe and you touch the bit you're going to cut, and you see if they still go January, February, March. And I said, with what you know of the brain, because he's seen so many brains, what's your main piece of advice for life? And he said, learn poetry when you're young. Isn't that amazing? He says, because I've seen young brains and I've seen old brains, and old brains are shrunken and hard and smaller, and they can't learn poetry. I thought, wow.
Oh, look, you see, you've got a healthy, throbbing brain.
No, but all my poems were learnt when I was young. That's
it. That's why. Oh, Jeremy, thank you. Such a pleasure. I could just spend hours and hours with you. You are one of a kind for all the best and most wonderful reasons, and thank you.
Thank you. I loved it.
Gaby Roslin.